It was the day before Christmas, and this 8-year-old girl opened the door screaming Santa and excited to receive her gifts. But what she did not know is before the dawn of Christmas, she would have lost 9 members of her family and almost lost her own life. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. This is day 3 of 10 days of horror, and we are going to be talking about the killer Santa. Stuff I say in this video is stuff I've read on the internet and I'm compiling into one video, so I mean no disrespect to whosoever is mentioned. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave it a like, it helps a ton, and subscribe for more content like this. Today we're going to talk about Bruce Jeffrey Pardo. He was a 45-year-old guy who grew up in California and graduated from the California State University studying IT, and he seemed to be a really smart guy. He worked in the IT department of a jet propulsion laboratory. That's important because he's going to use that information later. Jeff seemed to be doing well, so he started dating a girl called Elena, and Elena got pregnant and they were to have a child in 1999. So when they had his child, the child was just about 13 months old, so the child can crawl, and Elena left the house, leaving Jeff in charge of the child. But he did not pay that much attention. He was probably watching TV or something, because he took his eyes off the child and this baby started crawling or maybe walking, whatever kids at that age can do. And the wife was not at home. The baby crawled and fell into the pool. Jeff soon realized that, rushed to the pool and picked up the baby, and he did not drown, fortunately. But by the time they called 911, they brought an ambulance and they took the child to the hospital. But when they arrived, they told him that the child has sustained injuries to his brain that will leave him disabled for the rest of his life. So even though the child survived, because of that, the child is going to be disabled for the rest of his life. And Jeff, I'm not sure if he felt guilty or what, but for some reason he felt like all of this was just too much work for him, so he decided to leave the relationship and just close that chapter of his life forever and moved on. In 2004, Jeff met another lady called Sylvia and they hit it off, and 2006, 2 years after they met, they got married, and Sylvia had 3 kids prior to their marriage. And then Jeff bought a big house, a 3-bedroom house, which was almost $600,000, and he lived in this house with his new family. But this family was weird because Bruce was not willing to take care of and share his money with Sylvia's kids. He wanted Sylvia to spend her money and take care of the kids' needs on her own, while he just provides this house for them. So it's just crazy, because when you marry someone, you're deciding to become part of that family and you're accepting them and all of their kids. But yeah, he wanted Sylvia but did not want to be responsible for these kids. So that was the dynamics, and of course she was not happy about it. It was just something that was already rocky in their marriage. Bruce had absolutely refused to open a joint account with his wife because of his reasons, not wanting to take care of the kids, and that was a problem. There was some trouble in their marriage, but the icing on the cake was the fact that he had had a previous relationship, had a child who was now disabled on a wheelchair, and his wife had no idea about it. So when she found out about that, on top of the fact that he already has problems taking care of their kids and their marriage is already rocky, she probably decided to file for a divorce, because the couple decided to get a divorce. I'm assuming she would be the one to come up with that, because it shows a lot about the person's character, as he has no attachment to whatsoever or whosoever that is not himself. Yeah, so the couple decided to file for a divorce, and this was stressing Bruce a whole lot. Because of all of the stress going on, Bruce decided to buy a 9mm handgun, and during their divorce, the court orders him to pay $1,785 in spousal support, which is a lot of money if you think of it, but the court does not order that from one that the person does not have. So it goes to show how much he was making if the court ordered him to pay that. So he was making a lot of money if the court had him pay such an amount of money. Pedro's first check actually bounced because he had been fired from his job for billing extra hours, so the court just decided to stop that because the check bounced. So he was no longer required to pay that because of job hardship. On August 8th, Pedro bought a second handgun, the same type of gun, second one. So he was buying guns 1 month apart since then, and he ended up buying 4 guns before December. Pedro had a neighbor who made costumes, so he calls this neighbor and orders for a personalized Santa Claus outfit and has her put some compartments in it. So he has been buying guns. He has bought guns 1 month apart, so he has bought it 4 times, and he has 4 guns now. He orders for a Santa outfit personalized for him, depending on his size and the compartments he wanted put into it. The neighbor actually did not think anything of it because Christmas was coming, and he said it was for a child's party that he was planning to attend. So it made all sense to her. December 18, 2008, Pedro's divorce was finalized by the court, and he was supposed to pay his wife $10,000. She was going to keep the dog that they shared, and during their separation, all of this time, the dog has been with him, so he will actually have to give away the dog, which could have been really painful for him, and he has to give her this money that he probably does not have a new job because of the reason why he was fired from his old job. It's not particularly something that you're going to be proud of when applying for a new job, billing false hours. So she's just stressed about having to get a divorce. She's going to be fine, and also the wife had to keep the ring, so it felt like him giving out a lot, and he did not like that at all. At the court, Pedro actually complained that Sylvia is living with her parents, so she's not paying rent. She's eating at high-end restaurants, and she's taking golf lessons. She's going for massages. She's going for vacations in Vegas. And it tells me that this dude had been following her and keeping up with her life. Like, yeah, he was complaining about all of this, and he still has to give a lot of things to her. So it felt like she's living her best life. He's getting this divorce. He's heartbroken. He has to lose some money. He has to give away the dog. She's keeping the ring, and it was just hell raining down on him, and she's just living her best life. So on December 24, 2008, at about 11:30 p.m., Sylvia's entire family was at her parents' house with her sisters and their families. They were just having a big family party, and Pedro, dressed like Santa and had this huge present wrapped in his hand, and knocked at her family's door. Sylvia's parents were both playing a game after the dinner, and some kids were at the pool, while Michael, one of her nephews, was upstairs on his computer, and the younger kids were just playing around in the living room. So 8-year-old Katrina opened the door for Santa, and just as she opened the door and was screaming Santa, and that's when Pedro took out 2 of the 9mm handguns and started shooting aimlessly at everyone. He first shot Katrina to her face, like an 8-year-old sweet little girl. What did she ever do to you? He shot her to the face and went into the house with this gift, which was actually homemade fuel propelling, something that he had wrapped and made himself. Remember, he was a really smart guy, and he had worked with stuff like that at the laboratory where he worked. So he got into the house with that and just started shooting. That's when everyone realized that what was going on. Seeing what was happening, I can only imagine the chaos that was going on. One of the uncles actually screamed, "It's Pedro," because he could recognize him even under his Santa outfit and suit. So he had 4 guns on him and was using to start shooting randomly. People tried to take shelter, but it was no use. The parents who were sitting at the table tried to hide under the table, but he just kept shooting. And that day, Sylvia, her mom and dad, 2 brother-in-laws and 2 sister-in-laws, including Michael, the nephew who was upstairs on the computer, ended up dying. From the direction of where the bullet came from, the police actually estimated that this guy actually stood over some of his victims and shot them to their face. Like, dude, imagine the 8-year-old girl that was actually part of your family at some point. I'm imagining they would have gone to Christmas dinners together, and he literally shot her in the face. And this guy was crazy because he was not particularly looking for the wife who had hurt him or something. He was just shooting randomly at everyone, just trying to cause as much pain as possible. The big present that Santa had actually brought was something that he had wrapped. There was racing fuel in it, so he started spraying that around the house, and he had no idea that there was open flame somewhere. I'm not sure if it's the kitchen or the heater or whatever, but there was open fuel, there was open flame somewhere. So as he sprayed the jet fuel around the house, an explosion actually just occurred, and it actually burned himself. So that's a good part. It burned some of him, but like through all of the 9 people who died, it was actually Sylvia, her mom and dad, that died only from the gunshot wound. Michael was just died from flames, and the others must have died from maybe gunshot and the flames. The entire house caught fire, obviously, and 3 people were actually wounded, including the 8-year-old girl, and by some miracle she survived. I don't know, because he shot her to the face, and by some miracle she survived that horror. So 3 people were wounded, and that's when police were receiving calls from neighbors talking about the flames. I don't know if they did not hear the gunshots before, but like calls started pouring in and people were sending the police. The flames had caught most of the house, and it actually took 80 firefighters an hour and a half to put out the flames. Imagine, he had thrown racing fuel, he had sprayed the house with racing fuel. So yeah, it flames a whole lot. A police officer who arrived at the scene said it just looked like an apocalypse. Imagine having 25 to 30 people around, having a party and celebrating Christmas and wanting to enjoy the time with their family, and 9 people ended up dying from that, and it was just chaos. So while the police were living in the chaos that Bruce had left at the Ortega home, one of the neighbors actually said they had seen a car leave the house at about 11:45. So he had just been there for like 15 minutes, caused hell, and taken off. So they described that car to the police, and the police gave the description, and they were looking for that car. But in a neighboring town not too far from there, Pardo, which is Bruce's brother, had actually called the police to his house because he had arrived home and found his brother Bruce Pardo dead and in blood with a gunshot wound to his head, and he was already dead. So the police were trying to investigate and find out what happened. There was a bullet in the ceiling, so the police figured that there must have been someone else who was there during the shooting, not like a suicide or anything. At this time, like, these are 2 different police departments. They're doing what they have to do on their own, and they have no idea these cases are connected at that point. When the police arrived, they found Bruce with a 9mm gun to his hand, one on his lap and another. So he had like 3 guns on him, and one had been used to kill him. And when the police were doing more investigation into him, so initially they thought there had been another shooter because of the hole they had found in the ceiling. But after investigating, finding out who is this guy, they found out he was married to an Ortega, who is one of the Ortega siblings that was killed in the fire. And the fact that their divorce was just on the 18th of December, a few days before the holidays started. So the police started putting everything together. So the investigators ended up going back to the Ortega's home because at this point they think that someone must have created that mess at the family and probably gone back to kill Bruce because he was part of the divorce or something like that. And so they went back to the Ortega's home to get more information, and Sylvia's sister said that she could recognize who was under that Santa suit anywhere she saw him, and it was Bruce who had done that to their family. And now the police are figuring out what had happened. And also the car that the neighbor described was the same car that the police found at the Brad's home. So that was the same car. So Bruce had killed his ex-wife's family, driven to his brother's house, and then committed suicide. And when the police tried to check the car, they found a Santa Claus costume in it, and the costume had actually been rigged so that if it's displaced, it's going to cause an explosion. Like, this dude was smart. Why was he doing all of this with his life? It's just crazy. And yeah, so he had rigged that to cause an explosion, but the police were able to get around that. When they did an autopsy, they found out that Bruce had actually killed himself and there was no second shooter. He had sustained 3rd-degree burns to his arm, and part of the Santa suit had melted into his body. So at least there's some silver lining. He was in so much pain Probably that's why he killed himself, because when they found his car, it still had thousands of ammunition in it. He still had plans to go out and kill, but when the fire broke and the explosion burnt him, it probably caused him to kill himself. Maybe he was in so much pain, he decided to kill himself. A man realized that there was a strange car parked close to his house, so he called the police, and the police ran the plates and found out that this was a rented car which had been rented by Bruce, and this car contained food, supplies like clothes, food, computer, and the maps of the US and Mexico. So this was like his getaway car, and he had planted this car a short distance from the house of Sylvia's divorce attorney. So he probably planned to leave there, go and kill the lawyer who caused the divorce. Like, people really don't take responsibility for what they do. Planned to go and kill the lawyer and then get into this car and escape to Mexico. At least 13 children became orphans after the massacre that Bruce caused at the Ortega's home. And till this day, the 8-year-old girl who survived has just been really strong, and their aunties try to make them understand that Christmas is still fun and try to make their minds associate Santa with good things and have a good holiday, because it can always be worse, but they were able to survive something so horrific, and it can only make them stronger. I personally think that Bruce had all intentions to escape, because the police had actually found $17,000 in cash wrapped to his leg. So this was a plan. He would go and kill her entire family, go and kill the lawyer who caused the divorce, chase, and then escape in that car, probably go to Mexico. And the money on him was that in case he gets caught anywhere, he would still be able to run and have enough money on him to take care of himself, because he certainly did not plan to kill himself with money really wrapped to his skin. It was just crazy. So apparently after the explosion occurred and the burn was too much, he decided to drive to his brother's house, kill himself, so he would know that his body is going to be found or something. But that was it for me today, guys. Stay safe during Christmas. Merry Christmas to every one of you. Remember to like, and see you tomorrow with another video just like this.